tea in it, and it's gonna be good. We're discussing HIPAA violations, okay?
Okay.
Who can tell me what a HIPAA violation is? Yes, Macy.
Something that violates the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
Okay, so examples of that. I love that. Everybody give her a round of applause, please. That was amazing. Great answer, great answer. That was great, very quick, good knowledge. Okay, so the story I'm gonna read, the heading of this story, here's a good hook. Nurse shares patient STD diagnosis and damaging health information privacy breach case.
Wow.
Now,
that's spicy.
right? That's like a Z formation, like a head tilt. That's like everything. Like, oh no, she didn't. Yes, she did.
Yeah.
So, here's what happened.
You're in a sassy mood today.
I am. You know, it's popping. We got a game against Canterbury. It's gonna be a good day. No cyberbullies here. Okay. So, okay. Serious. I'm also like really nervous. I made that announcement over the phone. Like my heart's just racing. Okay. So. Nurse gives, I'm gonna put my hands down. Nurse gives sexually transmitted disease diagnosis details to patient's girlfriend. After treating a man with a sexually transmitted disease, an STD, an upstate New York nurse shared his condition with the patient's girlfriend. Not all HIPAA horror stories end with an expensive fine. Sometimes the accused business sympathizer suffers years of expensive and distracting litigation. So what that means is, this story did not end with the hospital getting fined. However, the girl did lose her job. And then the hospital had to go through a lawsuit that ended up lasting like 4 years until they finally took it away. They didn't get fined the whole amount of money, but that's a lot of like stress on companies, a lot of stress on like the hospital itself. And then that's also like, that hospital is getting a bad rep. Like that's a name that's going out there, that's a big scandal, especially in New York. Like, geez, hold the phone. So, patient privacy breach case, easily avoided. The 2010 incident happened when a nurse at the Guthrie Clinic, Steuben in Corning, New York, recognized a man who came in for an STD treatment as somebody who was dating her sister-in-law. Red flash, family. Red flash. What?
Red flag.
I got you.
Okay, so red flag. It's like family. So this nurse, her sister-in-law is dating this guy. Okay, dude, like. I'm not gonna lie, if I found out that my sister-in-law's boyfriend had an STD, it would be hard not to tell her. Like, you're withholding information. What if he doesn't tell her, she gets sick, and you knew the whole time? Like, you're a bad family member, but you have to abide by the law. You know, you gotta separate law and family, and when it comes down to it, your job's important. This girl, clearly it wasn't. So, when the patient was made aware of the source of the disclosure, he ended up suing the clinic, claiming a violation of privacy. Okay. The privacy breach case lasted 4 years, as you heard me say. The nurse was fired, and the patient then sued the clinic for monetary damages. So, what the background of this was is the guy was not planning on telling his girlfriend. Because, one, super wrong on his part, like, jerk, no sir. But like, so, you know, on a moral standpoint, props to the nurse. On a law, political standpoint, not so smart. So the reason like this was such a big deal is because one, that is disclosed information. Like you cannot talk about somebody else's medical, anything that they have, any answers that they get back. And she ended up sending 6 different text messages to the sister-in-law about it. So it wasn't just like a quick thing, like hey,
Your husband has an
his
STD.
boyfriend's got an STD. No, it was like 6 in-depth text messages about this whole thing. And the boyfriend, I guess, got it off the girlfriend's phone because he was like, how do you know? And nurse was fired. So 4 years later, the State Court of Appeals finally ruled the clinic was not responsible for the breach because the nurse was not acting within her responsibilities as an employee when she disclosed the diagnosis. Still, the privacy breach case cost the clinic owners thousands in legal fees and significant damage to their reputation. So, the reason that they weren't attacked financially is because the lawsuit wasn't pushed forward and it didn't kind of go all the way through. But because of all the legal fees of fighting it for 4 years, having to have someone battling your case, that's a lot. And I think this was a profit hospital, for profit, because it wasn't like a state thing. It was like a specifically owned guy's name, and I'm pretty sure it was a for profit. So that makes it even harder too. You're not getting resources from your state or your government. You have to take care of stuff like that as a for-profit hospital. So that was a big deal. And then again, the bad reputation. So
I would be curious to find out if
I can look
they
it
tried to get the nurse to pay for some of those fees. Like if they.
I didn't look into that. All I know is
If
she
it
was
was a person,
she was
you know,
unemployed, and then
I mean,
that's all it disclosed about her.
I'm sure it probably didn't say, but.
No.
And I don't know legally that they can.
That's what I was
because
thinking. I don't think they
She was working under them as her employer, so probably not.
I don't think they can.
But I would think they probably tried to make sure that they couldn't try to, I mean.
Like ask her first, because it's. I mean, yeah, and the fact was like she wasn't doing it like within the office on office computers. Like it was her like it was her personal cell phone. Like
So
her device.
she knew this family, she knew the guy and the.
So the girl is her
personally?
sister-in-law.
Oh, that's right, okay, I'm
So
sorry.
like she knows them, and he came in and like.
Why would he go to that clinic?
I don't know.
avoid it.
I think he messed up, but like
Well,
one.
so doesn't that make sense then why I told you guys at the hospital, I'm not allowed to look up my family members'
Yeah.
lab results,
He looked up
or my
yours?
neighbor's lab results, or.
Now I don't know if it was
You know.
his nurse. I don't know if she was his nurse that got the test results, but she probably found out that he was in the clinic, and probably asked around and was like, "What were his results?"
Or had the access to the computer.
Exactly. So,
This wall.
but they didn't mention a computer breach like that. They just found that she disclosed information or enclosed information. Okay. So the final thing for this case says that just because you win a lawsuit doesn't mean you won the battle for the patient privacy. Cost of defending a privacy breach case can be staggering. An ongoing HIPAA training and compliance program could have saved the Guthrie Clinic countless hours, dollars, and goodwill. So what that's saying is like having a constant training for HIPAA protection, stuff like that, could have maybe that reinforcement of like, yeah, you need to remember you can't do things like this. Like law has to come first in this case. You can't go and tell your family this kind of stuff. Could have saved it by reminding her that her job can be yeeted if she does that. But all right.
Alright, so I wanna ask a question, not of you, but like as a group. Are you done with that one?
Yeah, that case is done.
So how do you think that in the situation where I work, because guess what? People come to the ER with
Don't know
symptoms
who
of
they are.
STDs and they get tested. So how do you think we prevent, I mean, obviously that's a different situation, but how do you think we prevent making sure that people's test results don't get
Next.
into the wrong hands?
You probably do it yourself.
Well, yes. So here's what the rule is, because sometimes, you know, with most STDs, you don't get the results back that day while you're there. Unfortunately, with some tests, and it's not just for STDs, but there are some lab tests that take 72 hours, 48 hours, whatever, and obviously we're not gonna make somebody stay in the ER until their test results come back. So, what we do is we say, and I tell people specifically for STDs, because obviously you don't want me leaving that. I'm not gonna call somebody to leave that message on their answering machine, because what if it's their wrong number, or what if it's their mom's phone, or what if it's their boyfriend's phone, or their husband, you know, whatever. Like that's patient privacy. So a couple of rules that we have is when we call someone with results, we say, "This is the hospital. I
We
have
have
your test
yours,
results.
yeah.
Please call me back." But we don't leave any kind of information as far as any kind of test results. Like, we don't tell those over the
Wait,
phone.
you say their full name or just their first name?
Well, no, we don't say any. We'll say, "This is the hospital we're calling for." I usually say their first name. "I'm calling for Parker, you know,
Okay, like that, yeah.
please call me back, you know." we've
So
got your test results."
I've had a doctor that just says you're patient and they got me the wrong test.
Oh,
I have a
see.
question.
Now, hang on. So then, but before I let someone leave the hospital, because unfortunately, people are always honest with their phone numbers, especially people who don't have money and don't have insurance, because they're worried that the hospital's gonna hound them for a bill. And so they'll give a wrong phone number, or they'll give an old phone number, or they won't update their address or whatever. And so in situations like this where I know I'm gonna have to call somebody with test results, I tell them, I say, "Hey, make sure when you leave that we have your right phone number, because if I need to get a hold of you, or if we need to call you for these test results, I wanna make sure that you get them." Because when you're talking about something that's a contagious disease, you wanna make sure that person finds out, because guess what? If it's an STD, do they need to let the other people that they are around know?
Yeah.
Bro, but
Of
the
course they
audacity
do.
of this dude not wanting
And
to
in this
disclose.
case, that's a problem, because that's how these things spread, because people are
People are
not
clueless.
telling people. And anytime, you know,
I think
when
it's
you're
hilarious.
when you're treating somebody for an STD, I'll just be frank, you have to treat the person and you have to treat their partner, because you can't trust that people are practicing
Absolutely.
being safe. I mean, like,
The only way to not is to not.
you can't.
Woo!
Exactly. So, but in this situation, you
That's a
have
quote
to,
from 17
treat
again,
both.
Zac
It
Efron.
says
What treatment is STD prevention or whatever that is? What's
You
the
can't
treatment?
treat an STD.
prevention.
Yeah,
What's the
whatever.
prevention is abstinence. That's the best prevention.
The second one would be don't be silly. I'm not saying that.
Well, like wearing a condom.
Okay, yeah.
That's the second
Don't
best
be
thing.
silly.
If you're gonna, you know.
Yeah. We're
The best case scenario
Oh,
is
that's on
to only be
recording.
having sex with your husband or wife. That's
Yeah.
the best. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have a question in regards to that. So, if a 15-year-old girl comes in
Oh.
and maybe she lied to her mom that no, she wasn't sexually active, but she had a boyfriend or whatever, she was lying about it. She comes in, all of a sudden, oh, that boyfriend wasn't honest with her. Now she has an STD. You guys can't disclose that to her mom, can you?
Nope. In the state of Florida, if you are seeking
Awful.
sexual health services,
Yeah.
whatever that is, STD prevention, they think they're pregnant, any of those things, as long as they are, it doesn't matter what.
That's
age
why
they
the
are.
doctor asks you to sign that form, and they're like, "Hey, do you want?" They always ask your mom to step out of the room, and it's just you and like the kid, and they're like, "Do you want to sign this and say that your parents don't have access to that kind of stuff?"
And if it's different in every state, so, but I know in the state of Florida, sexual health, you can request services for
Alright.
sexual health without parental consent.
You ready? Go ahead.
I've never been asked that by my doctor. They have never made my
How
mom
old are you?
step out of the room. 16. They
Are
have.
you serious?
They have never.
Why do they ask me every time?
They're like.
Okay.
Like every time they're like. They,
Well, I'm wondering if maybe if the like let's just say vaguely, you were going to the doctor for abdominal pain.
They're gonna
And,
ask.
you know, maybe
I went
then,
for a headache,
because that
and they asked me if I was active.
Yeah, I think a well check, they're not gonna do that. But like if if you went to the doctor and you're like, I'm having lower abdominal pain, they might be like, maybe we should.
I think I went for my scoliosis
Oh my
one
God.
time too, and they asked. So I
went
really
to
don't
my
think that has to do
dermatologist,
with
and I
babies.
was on Accutane, like, you cannot get pregnant on Accutane, like, you might die. So they like really stress,
Well,
like.
you won't, but
Yeah, I know.
Darn it.
Well, I mean, you could, cause there would be complications.
There went my
if there's-
plans.
Yeah, anyway, that was just mentioning.
Pre-college
So,
plans.
well, the lady mixed up cause I take a pregnancy test every time I went there. She mixed up my pregnancy test with a positive one.
Oh.
So this lady walks in, white as a sheet, and goes, "Hi, okay, so something kind of went wrong. Can we please come back into the bathroom? I'll just set you up with a new one." And I walk in, I'm like, "What kind of bathroom?" She goes, "Okay, I just wanted to get you away from your mom. Here's your resources. Your pregnancy test was positive."
That's the Holy Spirit. That's the Holy Jesus.
No. And I was like,
Bro, that's a new Jesus inside me.
and I said, I can swear on my life, my mother's life, my entire family's life, that cannot be true. And she like looked at me and she's like, "Look, we're not asking for it." I'm like, "No, it's not true. It's not true." And I like explained this or whatever, and then she goes, "Wait a minute, what's your name?" I was like,
Oh my
and she
word.
turns around, opens the sheet. Oh, no. There was like a Maisie, like a M-A-I-S-Y, like there was a Maisie there. And she
Oh.
looked at it and confused the two first names. Last name also started with the letter L. Confused them, and this girl was like in her 30s that we were treating. And I'm like, "Yeah, that ain't me, sis." Like,
So how do you think in
That's
the hospital?
so
We've talked
funny,
about
though.
this, and I don't know if we've
Wait,
actually
she told
talked
you the
about
patient's name?
but
no. Well, yeah,
That's
she said
a
the last
fat
name.
HIPAA violation right
well,
there.
no, and so what would be the right way to confirm somebody's?
Okay, no, actually, sorry. She called me Maisie.
Oh, and you
She
thought she said
called-
Macy. And you're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Huh?" And then she goes, "Oh, Macy." And I was like, "Yeah." And then she was looking at her. She's obviously there was a Macy.
So in the hospital, the right way to do it, and actually we call it at WeHelp, we call it the red rule. And every time you have an interaction with a patient, I don't care if I'm asking you to pee in a cup, or if I'm giving you a pill, or if I'm gonna draw your blood, or if I'm just
you
gonna
say,
check
"What's
your
your
blood
name?"
pressure. I say, tell me your name and your birthday, and I'll look right at you, and I'll say, tell me your name and your birthday, and you have to, every time, and people get, like, mad, they're like, oh, I've been here for 2 hours, like, you've said this to me 15 times, and I'm like, sorry, but in a situation, like, that's why we
I hate that.
Because
I hate when I'm in
exactly.
the hospital
So,
and they have to do
okay.
that so
Ready?
much.
Alright, so the second one, this is kind of a different take because the other one was obviously a lot more like obvious it was a HIPAA violation. This one was by spoken word and quietly in a back room of a clinic. And
So break room.
basically like a break room. So I thought this was really interesting
Break room gossip.
because like, you know, people think like HIPAA violations have to be so big and like you have to make like big deals, like it has to be over technology, things like that, like things that can be proven. This woman spoke something and that's what caused, one, caused more research into what happened and then HIPAA violation. So, here's the story. The University of Iowa fired a student healthcare center employee earlier this year for violating the privacy of a pregnant female student and her boyfriend, a well-known student athlete, when the employee carelessly discussed the results of the student's pregnancy test with a female coworker. I know it's like really similar to like the STD thing, but I just thought these ones were like spicy, so I had to.
Especially like with it being a well-known student.
Yeah,
athlete,
that
like,
part.
that's-
So like
That's
basically,
probably
like
why
you know,
it happened.
everyone in here, most people know like Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be like Trevor Lawrence's girlfriend goes in, finds out she's pregnant, and a student worker there
Oops.
ends up telling somebody, says, bro, did you hear that he got his girl pregnant? And like they're not married, like they're just dating, like that's literally what happened. And this woman went and told people, like that's a big deal. But she said it. She wasn't typing it, she literally just told somebody in the back of the clinic. So, this employee was also disciplined for the HIPAA violation. Then they go into the extent of her discipline. Over 14 years, her name was Catherine Trump. She received extensive training and instruction on how to protect students' PHI, but it did not stop her from revealing out loud to at least one nearby coworker, right after she processed a positive pregnancy test, that she hoped the young couple was happy with their new pregnancy. So, her intentions may not have been bad. Maybe they were.
That
but
sounds really sarcastic.
Hope they're happy with your
well, I think it was more of like a, oh my gosh, they're pregnant, hope they're happy. Like, you know, subtly telling people that they're pregnant. But she could have just been
Who was the student
absolutely clueless. They don't give that name.
Yeah.
I think that would be more of a violation if they gave that
Yeah,
name.
that would be more of a
But-
violation.
Okay, so then it says, details of the incident were finally revealed in May when the records of the investigation were turned over to various news agencies. The entire incident appeared to stem from the careless words and actions of a veteran lab worker who should have known better. So, Trump even went so far as to point out the athlete to the clerk after she noticed he was in a waiting room. She also inappropriately accessed the patient's medical chart at least twice, opening records of past visits and medications.
Oh.
So, what happened was, they heard it first, they found out first through voice, and then they went and was like, alright, let's check more what this woman did. She accessed this dude's charts, okay, like, no. So, then, after speaking with Trump, the clerk, who was only identified as Beth, then went and spoke with two medical assistants who treated the female student and asked them for more details. So, now, it's not just one person's person she told, now going to get the tea from the two other clients who then had their information. The clerk who reportedly had a previous HIPAA violation. Okay, pause, another red flag. The person she told already violated HIPAA once. Okay, 3 strikes you're out. This dude's about to get strike 2. So, he asked if the male student was present with the patient when the patient received the news and how the couple reacted. The medical assistants then reported to the inquiry to a manager as a possible privacy violation. So, good medical people, the people who actually treated the student and or the girl and the student athlete, said to their manager, hey, this is going on. So then they probably told on the clerk, who then told on the girl, and then the story came out like all because she told them, and then when they went into more digging, they saw the charts and stuff. Anyways, so under HIPAA, a medical professor can only discuss the patient's information with another medical professional directly involved in that person's care and can only access the patient's charts to provide care or treatment for that individual, as we know. So, nevertheless, this all occurred in the wake of 3 healthcare workers being fired and 2 others suspended in 2011 for inappropriately accessing medical records of 13 football players who were injured in an intense off-season workout. Following that incident, the university stepped up its training on HIPAA privacy laws. So, this one incident, which had 3 workers fired, led to 2 others going on probation because they found out that later in the year they were accessing players' medical charts. So it then led into more training for the hospital, which we talked about. A result of HIPAA violations would be more training because obviously they're not getting enough. Even though that girl had 14 years of experience, it's fine. So then the lady who had been working there for 14 plus years, Trump was fired in January. So results came out in May. This girl was fired already in January. So that's how long it got waited till it got out to the public, I guess. Following an investigation by the school and the clerk was disciplined. Trump admitted her actions during testimony in April 26th unemployment hearing, according to the Iowa's newspaper, the Gazette, and expressed sympathy for the young couple. She claimed, however, she was talking aloud to herself about the test results and didn't intentionally look up the
doing that?
Wait. She didn't intentionally look up the patient's chart. Her unemployment claim was denied, and she's appealing that decision via a union grievance. So, one, she claimed, as you heard, she didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. I was talking to myself. And the clerk was like, bro, she went up to me. But then that clerk went over to 2 other people. So, I kind of just these 2 stood out to me a lot because of the violations. One, it can lead to a lot of different things. The second one obviously had more consequences in my opinion because it affected a lot more people. It led into digging into those people's cases even more and finding things out about 13 different players having violations of their PHIs. Yes. Right? Is that right? Be confident, Emma. You got this. Anyway, so yeah, I thought it was cool. If you have any questions, now it's time for questions. The floor is open. Yes, sir.
Miss Wolf, I got a question.
Okay, sure. Miss Wolf, question's open for you. I'll just sit here.
So, when that happens, you go into the hospital and they have to access the record for medicine. Do they have to ask you for permission? To know
Well, if you're coming for treatment, it's kind of like you're giving permission.
So I'm not surgery thing. Surgery. I just give permission for them to go into your records.
Well, yeah, because you anytime you're in the facility, part of being there for treatment is saying, yes, I'm acknowledging that I'm here for treatment and you need my past history or what medicines I've been on in the past to better treat me or to know, we wouldn't want to give you a medication that would react with something that you've taken or that you currently take. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But now, is it prudent for me? So here's the challenge. So when I'm taking care of someone who's there for chest pain, okay, and I've got all their records in front of me, would I need to look back to their record 3 years ago about when they were there for an STD? Do you think there's pertinent information in there?
No.
No. So that is not necessary.
Maybe something about the heart or something. Maybe.
Right. So, but if they were there 3 weeks ago because they were short of breath, yes, that would be one that I need to look at. Now, just because I have access to all that doesn't mean I need to be looking at it. And that's the kind of thing, that's almost like an internal thing, you need to have a level of, of morality that tells you, I don't need to look at, would it be curious? Yeah, well, especially if they were somebody that I used to work with. You have all these situations. I can't tell you how many times I've taken care of people, doctors, at the hospital who are currently doctors at the hospital and they come into the ER because they've had an injury or something's going on and I'm taking care of them and I have their whole medical record in front of me. Now, sometimes I can just say we're all human. Your curiosity is oh wow, I could look through all this if I wanted to, but you can't. There's nothing that's gonna say, because once I've accessed that chart, there's no red flag. You know how we talked about in the hospital, the break the glass. If I was gonna get into someone's chart that I shouldn't have had access to, IT would be notified. But if I'm taking care of that patient, I could look through anything I wanted to. There's nothing that's gonna stop me, but it's a level of morality that you need to have, and integrity that you need to know, hey, that's not important, that's not pertinent to today, so I'm not gonna look at that. So you always have those kind of situations.
Can you access your own health records if you have a surgery or something?
No. That's why they have the EHR, which is the patient portal, the MyChart. So I can access that, and that has all my test results and all those things in it like that, but it doesn't have the nurse's notes or the doctor's progress notes. Because what if I was acting like some crazy fool and they had to call security on me and they had to like, you know, they were writing all these notes about how I was cussing out the staff and being mean or something like that. Like those would be in the nurse's notes in a medical record, but those wouldn't be in my patient portal that I can see. So there are different things.
So wait, in my chart, you can see like all the surgeries you've had and all that?
You can see any kind of lab results, radiology results. I don't think you can see like the doctor's progress note. Like when a doctor does a surgery, they'll do what's called an op report, and they'll literally dictate a report about what they did.
Because they always
where they made the incision, how big the tumor was that they took out, that they sent it to pathology, blah 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 blah.
I don't mean that. I mean like it just says like, oh, like 2 years ago you had
it'll tell your visits.
Surgery. Like ACL surgery. 1 year ago you're like MCL surgery. Would that say that or no?
It'll tell your visits in there. Yeah, it should. In your My Chart, you should be able to see all that.
I've not even seen my My Chart.
So like Emma was talking about this last case. You know, they were talking about it in the break room or at the desk or whatever. Did that spray all the way over there? But I feel like that is the challenge that we have the most, like where I'm at in the ER and probably anywhere in the hospital, because you know we're all like. And I hope you guys get to come and spend a day with me and see, because it'll make things make so much more sense. But like, there's like 6 or 8 nurses at a time, and we're all, even though I'm taking care of these certain patients, I may have had 3 people in the room with me helping me, doing things, so they've had interaction with that patient. So it's not a HIPAA violation if I go out or later in the day I'm saying, oh, you know that guy you helped me with? You know, he blah, 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 this is what was going on, because they were in the room and they heard the patient talking and they knew the background story, and then sometimes we talk about the continuation of the case because they were involved in it. That's not a HIPAA violation.
Because then you'd be updated on what's going on.
Right, because then they were part of the care team. And so that's not a HIPAA violation, but what happens is when you're talking about it in an open space like the nurse's station, we sometimes talk loud, there's patients around, and so it's oftentimes viewed as patients are like, oh my gosh, they were talking about somebody, and we just are so immune to the situation and the noise level and everything that's going on. We sometimes, and I'll just say, like, I'll be honest, like we sometimes don't realize, you know, that that we need to like be quieter, not use, and you have to truly think about like trying not to use patient identifiers. And so a lot of times, Emma can probably tell you, we always refer to people as room 12, room 14, room 10, because there's no patient identifier there. And so really,
bro,
you know,
they were asking me to do stuff, acting like I knew where things were. I'm not even like just thanks, I appreciate you. Just like simple things when I was there, like when they asked me to go to the, do I have to move now? They're like literally kicking me out. Okay.
Cause she's trying to make us take our quiz now.
I mean, yeah, you did good. Woo.
Way to go.
Alright. Do you have questions?
Oh, for real though.
Comments, questions? I think, what do you guys think? Emma did good. Those are good, Emma.
Good job.
Good job. Yes, ma'am.
Are we taking our quiz?
You are going to take your quiz.
No.
That's what you guys
I
are
just
to do.
did that.
No, so you guys can open your iPads and take your quiz for Unit 3 and let me know when you're done.
Wait, I'm not reviewed yet or at all. To be honest with you.
We reviewed on Thursday. You left early though. Remember I said, we're taking your quiz on class on Monday.
I thought
Remember I said that?
Review.
You can take it.
You
and
review
you can
was
retake
my-
it.
Can I take it later today
My
and
stuff.
review it?
Adrian, we're going to let you take your quiz. Bye.